My name is Sarah MacDonald. I'm a senior and an English major at Salem State College. It's November 26, 2007. I'm joined here today by Alexander Bernardo. He's a junior and an accounting major. And I just wanted to thank you for coming and joining us today.
You're welcome again.
All right, let's start. I'm going to start at the beginning again. I see, that you grew up in this area. Tell me a little bit about your experiences.
You're right. I did grow up in this area. Grew up in Peabody and Lynn. Peabody until I was about first grade. Then moved to Lynn. Moved back to Peabody. I went to Our Lady of Assumption, and then I went to Bishop Fenwick High School. I've always liked New England. Ever since growing up here, I like the political climate. I like not so much the actual climate sometimes,
Yes.
but I like that there's the ocean. There's so many different things that you can do. It's very nice, beautiful here, and I really liked it.
I also see that your mother was a high school teacher. Was getting a college education important in your family?
Most certainly. My mom's an alum from Salem. She that was always pushed from her because it was pushed from her mother. My sister has her degree from St. Mike's up in Vermont. She's a high school teacher as well at Peabody. That was every time I saw her with my grandmother, it was make sure you do good in school, make sure you do good in school, make sure you do good in school. It was exceptionally important. Even my father, who has like a 7th grade education effectively, he immigrated when he was 16. He even said it's his biggest mistake was not getting a higher education. So it's always been very, very big in my family to become educated, learn some sort of trade, make something of yourself is how it's always been said.
Well, education was very important in your family. So what inspired you to join the military?
Well, like I said, as a child, I always wanted to be in the military. It was just, I always played with GI Joes. It was kind of one of those big drives for me. Two main reasons is one, my stepfather was a Marine for 3 years during Vietnam, and he always said, it's an unbelievable opportunity. You get so much out of it, you should really think about it. And the other really big reason was because of me being first generation American on my father's side. Second on my mom's side, it was, you get to see what you come from, and then when, your family immigrates over here, what this country can do for a family if they're willing to work hard and make something of themselves. All my aunts and uncles have been successful in their lives. My father's been exceptionally successful. He has his own business. It's amazing because I get to see, I've been to Portugal a bunch of times, and I got to see where my father's side of the family came from, and it's poverty, and it's not poverty like we have over here. It's poor, eating cabbage soup because you can't afford meat, those type of things, and there's no real welfare system over there. So it was, do it on your own or don't, and not doing it means you don't live anymore. So it's seeing what this country has done for people like that, and I've seen it, hundreds of times with people immigrating here, and it makes me have a strong love for my country, and that was one of the big reasons that I joined, is because I do love my country a lot, and it's seeing the example from my stepfather and what it can do for you was really the big reasons that I joined.
Yeah. So your family was very supportive of joining the military?
Most certainly. My mother's always, when I came home on leave, I had to wear my uniform. I had to go to her school, talk to her kids. When she got married, I had to walk down the aisle in my uniform. When my grandmother died, I had to wear my uniform at her funeral. It was always, I'd come home and she said, "Why aren't you in uniform?" I'm like, "Mom, I'm on leave. I don't have to wear my uniform." She always wanted me in uniform because she wanted, to show me off effectively, that people would see, and she just beaming, big smile across her face. When we'd walk through the halls of her school, just, this is my son, look what he's done, and just exceptionally proud of me, and then wanting to use my experience to help her kids, because, I was a problem kid in high school. I didn't do any homework, or I didn't do any work. I was really lazy. I got in trouble a lot, and effectively she wanted me to show some of the kids maybe that had the same situation that I was in when I was in high school, that you can overcome that and become a better person, have more drive, more pride in yourself. She even said, you look like you've gotten taller. since I was in the Air Force. I wasn't taller. Didn't shrug down as much. I didn't drag my feet when I walked, and it's always been a source of pride for everyone in my family. My father, he was always said that he was very proud that I did that, and it's kind of hard not to when you have someone in uniform, and I always took pride when I put my uniform on. It's one of those things. I mean, it looks good. It makes you different from other people that are walking the street. You walk down the street in uniform, you're much different than the person that's walking next to you because you're in uniform, and it almost commands respect, and that makes you proud of doing that. And then when other people around you, your pride is exuded onto them, and they feel proud because they're with you, and that's, my entire family was always thankful that I did that and always very respectful of it, even though if they didn't agree with political reasons that were going on, they were still always very proud that I was in the military.
So you consider the military a part of your educational experience then?
Most certainly. I went through, I did get college credits for a lot of it, but basic training is not so much, education is mainly, Air Force history, but the other things that you learn through that, being part of a group of people that, if you see pictures of us on our first day there, we're all in civilian clothes, hairs everywhere. And then you see us at graduation marching. It's called the bomb run, where you march in front of a general, and we had to carry the flags, and you see everyone marching in unison in perfection, and to me that's education. That taught all of us how to become a team and work as a group. Then I did my tech school, which is my technical training as a nuclear weapons specialist. I had to learn all of that stuff, there's physics in there, and there's a lot of maintenance things. And then even further upon that is I had to go through Airman Leadership School, which is a school you get to when you hit E4 that teaches you how to be a supervisor. And that is another great thing that I learned through the Air Force, is they teach you how to lead people and how to empower people to do things and be better. And effectively, the whole group is better because each person is better. And that's most certainly an educational benefit, not necessarily a degree education, but a life education is, being a strong person, a strong leader.
Yeah. So even though you said before what you learned during your time in the Air Force wasn't really something that translated to a job here in the civilian world, you do think you picked up education and skills in your time in the Air Force?
Most certainly. The actual job I didn't translate over very well. I was a nuclear weapons specialist. Doesn't really work. There's no listings in the newspaper say a guy that can turn wrenches on nuke. But a lot of the things I did learn is because I moved in that job. You have different areas that you can work in. You can work in munitions support, which is all basically where you issue tools and do all the inspection of the tools and everything. Then you have your maintenance. The guys that are actually doing the work. Excuse me. Then you have control, which I worked in for a while, munitions control, which is like a communications hub where any emergencies, you run all the checklists, you're in control of where people are going, things like that. And then I switched over to munitions operations, which is more of accountability and planning is the real big thing that they do. And that right there is helping me more because, effectively I can put on my resume that I dealt with the accountability of $4 billion worth of assets for the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, which is completely and wholly true. That's what we did. And it's and the thing with it that really confers to accounting is the accuracy and the perfection that you have to have. You can't make mistakes. Like, this is the big thing in my career field is they'd always say, we're not working on sandbags here, people. And it's true. You're working with something that's very delicate and very important. You have to have perfection because if you don't, mistakes get made. And it just happened in the news a couple of weeks ago. Things go very wrong and people get fired and you can go to jail for a lot of different things. If you are very negligent on things, you can go to jail for it because what you're dealing with is so important. So that was exceptionally, important for me to confer to the business world, which I didn't think it would. I honestly didn't. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, I did accountability, and now I'm in accounting. Now, granted, it was nuts and bolts and assets and things, but it confers to dollars too. It's the same thing.
It's interesting. So why did you choose the Air Force?
Better life. In all honesty, my stepfather always said, Al, pick the Air Force. It's you guys have a much better life. The Air Force's budget is much bigger. We live better. We eat better. Everything about it, you get more benefits. You're not getting deployed all the time. I was never deployed once in the 6 years I was in. I went temporary duty once for a week to Kansas City to go to a meeting. I mean, it's a much more stable life that you lead. I mean, depending on the job, especially the job that I picked, is we don't get deployed. The only time you get deployed is if you ask, can I get deployed? And you go and do something else that isn't your job. But it's just a much better life, more professional as opposed to, grunt is the reason I picked it. And it's, my godfather, he was Air Force. We didn't really talk about it as much, but it was mainly the pushing of my stuff out, so to speak. He said, you're too smart to be a grunt. Go do something that you can use your brain with. So there I was.
So do you think the push for education in your family sort of also inspired your choice in the Air Force, where, that was important, making higher standards?
I never really equated it to that. I never really thought of that aspect of it, because it's kind of, I did take classes while I was in and everything, and I think it would have to be more of the part of being smarter, having someone say, you're smarter than that, go do, something that's going to, use that ability, as opposed to, I can shoot good, but I'm better at working with my brain than, shooting, so do something like that. I think that conferred more that, plus it's an ego thing. I get to say, I have to be smarter to be in the Air Force, so I get to make fun of the Army guys a lot more.
There you go. Even before and during your time in the service, did you always know that you wanted to go to college and get a degree?
Most certainly. My entire life, it was it's kind of touch and go there for a while. When I first joined the service, I didn't take class for like the first 2 years I was in, but then seeing all the educational opportunities that I didn't have to pay for it. It's free. Why am I gonna and it's so important to my family. If I'm not going to stay in the service, I have a lot of friends of mine that say, you can make money without having a degree. And I said, yeah, it's most certainly you can make a lot of money. Most of the richest people in the world didn't get a degree. But it's a lot easier. It's that whole foot in the door thing. You have your degree. People looking at resumes, well, you don't have a degree, throw it in the trash. It is just a piece of paper, but it's a piece of paper that is a qualifying aspect of getting a job. So that's fairly important.
So what made you decide to go to TVI while you were out in the Southwest?
I had two options. It was either there or University of New Mexico. University of New Mexico didn't really cater to working students as much as TVI did. I would have liked to gone to UNM a lot more. It's a little bit more prestigious than a community college, but you can get an education anywhere. If you're interested in learning it, you're going to get a good education no matter where you go. It just catered well to working and going to school. UNM, you'd have to take day classes. I have to, see if I could get my schedule rearranged, and if something happened, my schedule, I had to switch back. Well, you're out of luck. Tough. Get out of your classes, basically. So it's being able to have that flexibility, taking night classes, weekend classes. It worked out a lot better.
Yeah. Well, it seems like quite a lot, to serve in the Air Force and work and go to school. How are you able to balance all that?
Just really do it, kind of like I said earlier.
I know, we already went over this.
I always like to talk about, my stepfather was really very, very supportive of me, more so than almost anybody when I was in basic. Everyone wrote me letters, and he was like, hey, I hope you're doing well, but he was the one that really, almost every couple of days I was getting mail from him, sending me pictures of the house, or, pictures of the, the pets and everything, and, saying, we're all proud of you, you're doing really well. And the biggest thing he ever really said to me was, he said, it's just like the Nike commercial, just do it. And that kind of really stuck with me, that if I want to do something, I need to work for it. Like I said, my father's an immigrant with no education and has a fairly successful business. He didn't get that way because he had a lot of education, because he didn't. He got it from hard work. And that's, even looking at my mom, she was a single mother working, being a teacher with 2 kids. How did she do that? She just did it. She worked at it and did it, and it's hard, but life's hard. It ain't easy. If you want something, you work and you get it, and you strive to accomplish what you need to accomplish. You set your goal. This is my goal. This is what I need to do to get to this goal, and then you execute and do it, and that's how you do anything.
Mm-hmm. So is family support really important for getting you where you are right now?
Most certainly. My dad and my stepmom have been really, really helpful with that. They work around my school schedule for my work schedule. I'm like, I got to do this. I can't come into work today. Okay. These, every time I sign up for my class, I say, this is the next semester, this is what I'm doing, these are when my classes are, I can only work these times, and they do that, and they work around that. My mom has always been supportive of anything I've done in my entire life. My sister, I ask her, can you look over this paper for, she's an English teacher, look over this paper for me. My entire family's always been supportive of anything that I've ever done, and it's always been very, very important to me that they're there saying, they don't like to fuel my ego, but you're doing a good job, keep doing it, that's always exceptionally important, because everyone has that, desire to be recognized for things that they accomplish. Everyone wants that. Everyone wants to say, wow, you did a good job on that, and that's important, because if you don't know that you're doing a good job, sometimes you're just like, oh, well, why am I doing this? And that's exceptionally important.
Right. I believe your service ended in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
What led you back to New England and Salem State?
The quick and dry version is my girlfriend wanted to go to school. She wanted to get her PhD, and she wanted to go somewhere other than UNM. That's where she got her undergrad. So she was looking at University of California out in Monterey, and I said, why don't you look at Massachusetts? Because if you go to California, I can't go. I'm like, I have a job here. I have a lot of bills. I need to pay my bills, and I can't just go blindly somewhere hoping that there's a job there that's going to be able to pay for what I need to do. So to look at Massachusetts, we have unbelievable schools, which we do. And she's smart. I'm like, you can get into whatever school you want to get into. I'm like, why don't we go look up there? You can look at schools. I have a job right when I get home. We have a place to live. We don't have to worry about finding an apartment while we're living somewhere else. And then we can get our feet on the ground and then get an apartment, figure out what we need to do. And it worked out a lot better.
Yeah.
I always had that goal to move back here, but that just really expedited that goal. I had a burp
I have
again.
to count now? All right, get it out now.
Excuse me. Damn soda. Hope that was loud in there.
Okay, are we ready? Okay. Let's see. I know we talked about this before, but we in the book that we read in class, U.S. Military Profession in the 21st Century, the authors talked about a military culture. What does that word mean to you, and do you feel like you were part of a military culture?
Not anymore. I was, obviously, not in the military anymore. I talk to my friends that are still in there and everything, but it's really, a time constraint that, I don't really, it's part of my life that I moved on from. Military culture is, I see it as like a family type culture. That's what it really means to me. You have guys that get deployed for ridiculous amounts of time, getting extended over there 18 months in country, which is, that's preposterous to me. But, I couldn't imagine being married, having children, and then getting deployed and being over there, missing the birth of your child, things like that. And the family culture of it is that everyone supports each other. This guy's deployed, so everyone else pitches in to help out, the wife or even the husband a lot of times, to do things around the house, get things done, help them out. That is really important. It's a real family-like culture, and you even have that with inter-service rivalry. People, I always make fun of Army guys and Marines. You saw that at the meeting that we had. It's one of those things that it's like your brother and sister. You're going to pick on each other as much as humanly possible, but then when someone from the outside comes in and says something, you guys are brother and sister. Obviously, they're in the wrong, and it's a real family type culture. You have, and just like your family, you have people that you get along with, that you love to hang out with. You have other people that you can't stand, but yet they're still your blood. They're still your family. You're going to help defend them because they are your family, and I think that's really a real big important part of the military, is that you have that, that whole culture of togetherness, and it's called the esprit de corps, spirit of the corps. You have this, teamwork mentality that, even if you don't get along with someone, you're going to do something, you're going to work with them to get the mission done or whatever you're getting done, because you have to. And that's exceptionally important for the success that the military has.
So even though this was a family culture, which you said was something really important to you, was family, I know you mentioned that you thought it would be very difficult just now to go, be away from your family, wife and children and all that. So is the military culture something that you feel like you wouldn't have wanted to be a part of your whole life?
Oh, what do you mean?
Something like you were in it for a while, and but you mentioned that you thought it would be very difficult to leave your wife and kids. And
Oh,
be involved in the military for
most certainly.
during that time?
I even went through that. I went through a lot of homesickness after I left. I was really, real close to my family. My mom's always very supportive of me. My whole family, and then I leave at 19 years old and move halfway across the country, or actually almost all the way across the country. And what ends up happening is, I went through it real bad. That like holidays, especially if you're not home, are real difficult. They were for me, especially. Thanksgiving was a rough one. I never went home for Thanksgiving, and that was always really tough. I was always around my family on Thanksgiving, and it's something that's real hard. But you have to get through it. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to leave and go home. I mean, you don't have that option. So it's really something that you have to really work at a lot of times. Not being able to hang out with your family. I missed. There's actually a picture from I think it was Easter. I'm not sure, but it's my grandmother, my two cousins, and my sister, and then they have like this little stick with a white thing on it that says "Insert Alex here," and they're holding it up in the picture, and that it's comical, and I thought it was hilarious, but that really showed that it's real tough. That they even suffer. I mean, obviously they don't want me around all the time. That would just be hellacious on them, but showing that separation from your family it's really difficult, and I couldn't imagine if it was my wife and kids that I had to be away from for that long. I mean, that's something that's really important to people, and I guarantee that's really rough for them to deal with. So could be one of the other reasons I decided to leave the service. I knew I wasn't going to stay. I wasn't going to be in my entire life. I wasn't going to retire out of it, but I always wanted to move back towards my family, and now I'm thinking about moving away again. So who knows? There may be something to it. There may not be. I don't know.
That's how it is. Family can't live with them, can't live without them.
Well, certainly.
So you don't really feel that you're part of a military culture anymore since you've left the service?
Not at all. Like I said, I talked to my friends and that are still in, but other than that, it's kind of, I have those traits that have stuck with me. That drive and things like that. I still talk about my squadron that I was in as my squadron. Actually, someone pointed it out to me. Said my squadron. They said, "Hey, you're not in the 898th anymore." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but it's tough to break a habit like that. You go 6 years saying, my squadron this, or this, that, the other, something that you belong to, and then you sever that tie, and you're like, this is still part of my life. But it's not one of those things that I've carried along with me, basically."
Yeah. Are there any remnants? I know you were just talking about how you still refer to it as my squadron. Is there any more remnants of your military culture and life that stick with you today?
I refer back to it a lot, especially in political discussions. That's always a trumping card when you can say, "Well, you've never been in the military, so you wouldn't know." It's always one of those things you can say to people. I think it's important to have and keep those aspects of your life. The drive, the motivation, as my sister would say, my video gaming skills, because I played a lot of video games when I was in. I worked overnights in a shop, and there's nothing to do overnight, so we play a lot of video games. But a lot of those things it's more of an outlook thing than anything. The way you perceive things, and you perceive, especially like political action and things like that, as being someone that was in the service and haven't been on the receiving end of a lot of things that happen. The biggest thing that I took with me is because I'm a disabled vet. I still, I go to the VA, and all my healthcare is to the VA. All my school is paid for from the VA and everything, and that's kind of. So I keep that part of those aspects with me when I go to the VA and I talk to the old guys and everything. And you always have that connection with somebody. So I guess you can say that you always carry that. If someone was in the military, you're going to talk about it, and when it comes up in conversation with anyone. So you still keep those aspects, but it's not something that's overtly strong in you that, people hardly ever guess that I've been in the military. One, because I look young, and two, I'm not very rigid, I guess. A lot of people picture that. Someone that's in the military, they're very staunch and rigid, and I'm not like that.
So you feel there's a military stereotype?
Almost certainly there is.
Around?
My stepfather fits it perfectly. He was a Marine. He's everything has to be in its order. Everything's, this way, that way, very, very structured. But there is that stereotype that everyone, you see it a lot of times with people that haven't been around it, and because of everything that happened in Iraq, you have a lot more people that are anti-military, and it perpetuates a stereotype. Oh, they're a bunch of grunts, they're a bunch of baby killers, this, that, and the other, and they're like everybody else. people are going to be people. You know, you go through that time when you're in basic and everything's very structured and ordered. But when you leave that, you regain a lot of your old personality back. You know, it takes a little while to come out of you, but you regain a lot of your personality that's who you always were. So we're all people. It's not. It's an incorrect stereotype. Sometimes it's not. Some people are they fill it perfectly, but it is there. I've seen it. I've been called a baby killer before, but you know, it's something that's in existence that people really perpetuate a lot of times, and it's usually in a negative light, which is. But there's also the amount of people that portray us in a positive light too, so it kind of balances out, I guess.
Since we're on that topic, do you feel like being in college, you know, which can be a political institution sometimes, have you ever faced during your time as a student any stereotypes against or for you in the military?
Not really, no. Like I said earlier that Salem State's pretty politically apathetic with things. I've had a couple teachers that were, it wasn't a military thing, it was a political outlook thing, whereas I'm very moderate. She was exceptionally liberal, and I don't, whatever, you know, have your beliefs, I have mine. Everyone's happy, but when you're in a role as an educator, you should portray both sides of the story, and then have students decide which side that they like best, that fits them the best. You know, at the age that people are in college is very impressionable, and this when you start to form a lot of your views and your outlooks on life, and especially your political views, because when you're younger it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. You know, you get a little bit older, you start, you know, you can vote now, even though most of us don't. You develop a lot of those views and what you think is right and wrong. You have a lot of influence from your family, but a lot of it is external, and especially in an educational role, I think teachers should portray both sides of the story and then say, well, whichever you think is right is right. And it wasn't like that in that class, and I felt like I was, you know, the harbinger of conservatism, because I had to, you know, continue to say, no, listen, you know, there's another side to this, and this is, you know, this is the other side. You know, this can be right too. Just because you believe in this doesn't mean that it's the correct way, and you shouldn't be teaching people that it is the correct way, because it may not be. You know, it's the story of my life. Being moderate when you're around conservatives, you look liberal. When you're around liberal, you look conservative. So
yeah,
it's a lose-lose.
So do you feel like your experiences and time in the Air Force has influenced your beliefs and how you approach your education?
Most certainly. I approach my education much more seriously. I work on it a lot. You know, it's something that I do it because I've been past that part of my life of, you know, partying. And, you know, my younger years when I turned 21, I was in the military. I went out, did all my drinking and partying then. Now I'm older, you know, and I have those views of, you know, determination and accomplishing goals. And I have them now, so I convey that on my education because it's important. It's something that I want, you know, and I want good grades. And you set that goal and you achieve it. And that's one of the big things about military culture and, you know, military education is that you have goals. You set that goal, then you look at what you need to do to accomplish that goal, and then you execute and do it. And that's exceptionally important in school, I think. You have a goal of, I want this grade. What do I have to do to get this grade? Where am I at in this class? Set that goal, do it, and get it. Yeah. And that's very important.
Definitely. You were mentioning something about class discussions earlier. Do you feel that you've ever used your experience in the Air Force in class discussions and used it?
Well, certainly. I took a management class, and that was very big in that class because it's, you know, the military is one way or one type of management, the way they lead, and which is completely opposite of the way people think that they do it. They're actually big on empowerment and, you know, fostering people to have, you know, to get them to be better at what they are. It's not just do this because I said so. They actually teach you, you know, obviously you have to tell someone what to do, but a lot of times that you have to help them understand sometimes. Sometimes you don't have time for that. Just say do it and get it done, and then you can explain later, but it's very, very changed in what people really think it is. It's just order this, order that, and it's not. It's the way they teach you to be a leader is very, you know, empowering, or to empower your, you know, subordinates and say, you know, listen, you're good at this, you know, work at this, you're bad at this. They always teach the cheeseburger method, 2 good things with a bad thing in the middle when you have to, you know, tell someone they did something wrong. which you wouldn't think about that in the military. Usually you would think it was just berating you on what you did wrong. You're an idiot. You suck. Get out. It's not. It's, well, you're good at this. You need to work on this, and you're also good at this. And it's very, and that really conferred a lot to my classes being, in business, that management classes, things like that. And, there's always little anecdotes that I tell in classes because I've gone through certain things that really confer. And I like to hear the sound of my own voice, so it ends up working out very well.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about the student culture? I know, we all know stereotypes about typical college students. Do you feel like you're a part of the student culture at all?
Not at all. Not in the least. I come here, do my classes, go home. That's what I have time for. I have my own, friends and family that I hang out with, and I have no desire to be part of that because I don't have the time to be. Would I like to be? Yeah, sure. I'd like to be, more involved with tutoring, and I had a couple professors ask me to tutor, and then I had the accounting association. Sure, I'd like to participate more in that. I don't have time for it, so it stinks, but that's what you have to do.
Well, it's difficult being an older student. How do people approach you or treat you when they learn that you've been in the military here on campus, professors and students?
No real difference, in all honesty. I guess I don't really perceive any difference. Oh, well, awesome, thanks. I've had people, I've had a couple professors say thanks, and not much else from that. It's not really a big topic of discussion. Just say, oh, really? Yeah, cool. What'd you do? This, that, the other. Usually have questions about what you did and things like that, but it's not anything. I've never had a negative, or, I've had positive. I've never really had a negative experience with it. It's just, I'm another student. I think they notice more that I'm an older student than I was military, because I take school seriously, and I think that's what they notice more.
Yeah. So you feel that right now your role, I guess, as an older student is more powerful than the fact that you were in the military.
I think so.
On campus.
I really do. I mean, maybe if I was younger and I still had the same values, it might be more important that I was military and they'd see it as that. But I think it's more perceived that I'm an older student, so I take things more seriously. I think that actually comes out more.
Have you ever run into any experiences at school where, the things taught in school clash with what you have experienced or learned during your time in the Air Force?
I guess if I took history more,
Yeah.
I would run into that a little bit more.
You probably would.
But I only took one history class. It was World Civ II, so it was fairly old history, more current history. If I experience current history a little bit more, that might clash a little bit from what I know. But everything's been fairly business oriented that I've taken for classes. So I've had things clash in the way I believe business is and should be done, and what is taught and how it actually is, but nothing basically towards the military. I've had a couple teachers that it was, like I said earlier, that whole one-sided thing, and that I didn't really like, and some of it touched closer to military stuff, but it never really got onto military aspects, which is, I guess, kind of a good thing. I wouldn't want to be in that class where someone was teaching one-sidedly negatively towards the military. That would turn into a problem. But I'm very outspoken about things that I believe that are right, and something like that. You can hold your tongue on certain things, but I don't really appreciate people talking negatively about the military, because people in the military have sacrificed a lot for people here, and someone speaking negatively about that, especially in an educational aspect, would be a very big problem to me. But luckily, I've never had to deal with it. So
That's good. How exactly has your time in the Air Force influenced your beliefs or your behaviors?
It kind of has. It kind of hasn't. I think I was really moderate even before I joined the military with beliefs and things I had. I think being in the military may have pushed me a little more conservative on a few things. Not even socially, though, economically.
Yeah.
I got pushed a little more conservatively, but I've always had a real, the same outlook socially, and for the most part, since I went through the military. There was a few things that actually changed, which is actually the opposite of what you'd think you would change. Before I joined the military, one example would be people burning the flag. My entire life, I was exceptionally against that. Even when I was in the military, I actually changed my opinion on it halfway when I was getting out of the military. I've always been against that. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. But what I ended up realizing is I'm very big on the Constitution and the freedoms that we've been provided. I think that's exceptionally important. That's one of the reasons I joined the military, because I love what we have in this country. And I always thought my outlook on it was, you burn the flag, you're burning what it represents, and that would be your Bill of Rights. So how can you protest and say, I'm protesting this, but I'm burning my right to do so? And I think it's exceptionally disrespectful. I still think it's exceptionally disrespectful, and I don't think people should do it. But I always thought that there should be an amendment saying that it was illegal to burn the flag, and I've actually wholly reversed that, and I said, I think people should be able to do it. Do I think it's wrong? Well, certainly. Do I think it's disrespectful? Of course it is. It's vile, in my opinion, but I think people need to have that right. If that's the only way that they can get the attention that they need when they're protesting, then they should have that right, because I think it's an exceptionally important right that we have is speech and protest. And for me to say that, I looked at it in one aspect of, well, what if someone burned something else that wasn't that important to me? Would I still be mad and say they shouldn't do that? Like if someone wanted to burn a Bible and people said, oh no, there should be a law against that, would I agree with that law? And after looking at that and saying, no, I wouldn't agree with them doing that, then logically I can't say that there should be a law against burning that either. So that is, the military kind of changed me a little more liberally in that way, which is kind of weird. Usually you'd think it would make you more conservative, but I guess it depends on the person, the influences and the experiences that you have while you're there.
That's really interesting. Do you feel that since you're a college student and you've had experience in the military, I know you haven't taken many history courses or maybe political courses, but do you feel that the average college student is well educated in military history or current events?
No. And I think that's a fault of their own, not the fault of the the academic schedule. I think people just don't care. It's especially at the age that they're at. They could really care less about political climate or things of that nature. I can't really speak to taking history classes or anything and how it's taught there and how much is taught there. I think it's important to teach military history and what the military has done for us, but I've never had to experience, so I don't really know. I think it's more of a fault of kids on their own not really caring about it. I don't think it's anything that has to do with the academic side of it.
In your opinion, do you think it's important for college students to be more educated about what's going on in foreign affairs and military actions, whether it be war or whatever's going on?
I think it's more important for anybody to be, there's a lot of, right now is a really interesting time in, U.S. history. And I think it's important for everyone to know. I think there's a lot of bad things that are happening, not militaristically, but socially in our country. And I think people need to realize what's happening. We're going through a phase in history where our, in my opinion, our freedoms are being eroded, and I think a lot of people just don't care. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of things that have taken place that show that trend that slowly but surely all of our freedoms are getting whittled away, and it's something that people take for granted. I think everyone, not just college students, I think more so in college you should be exposed to things like that, and I think professors should push more current event type things, but I think it's really important for everyone, not just students.
Yeah, I agree. So if you had a chance to set the record straight for Americans and you got to go on TV and everything, and you had that opportunity, very exciting, and you had a chance to talk to them about your experience in the U.S. military, and everyone had to listen to you. What would you want to say to Americans right now
based on
your experiences, even as a college student and being in the Air Force?
I think it's what I'd want people to know is to, really, take a look at what is going on in your country. Look at your politicians, look at the system that we have, decide if you're happy with it, decide if there needs to be changes made, and do something. Become more active, vote. I mean, that's the big thing. People don't get out and vote, and that's all the problems that we have. If you complain about what's going on, and you don't vote, I mean, that's the choice that you have. The politicians we have are our own fault. They spend too much money and don't tax us. They keep taxes low but keep spending more money. That's our own fault. We put these people in office. I mean, if you really, really think that there's a problem, look into it. Become more educated about what's going on in your country. There's things that happen all the time in the Supreme Court and everything, and no one knows and no one cares. And it's an exceptionally important part of your life. It affects you every single day, and it should be something that you know about. I mean, you can walk through life being apathetic and then just cursing, oh, the damn government. You don't even know why it's happening. You just know it's bad for you. Well, read, do something. Watch the news. Figure out what's going on and why you dislike it and what you can do to change certain things. And it's kind of important.
Yeah, definitely. I could not agree more. So were you always this politically active and aware, or was this something that you learned?
It's coming more as I get older and things like that. I've always been argumentative, and politics is one of those things that you can argue with anyone with. So no, as I got older, probably in the past 5 years, I'm becoming more and more aware of what's going on. Just certain things that I've realized are important to me for us to have as a country, that I think that we should have, and the way things that should be, which is everyone has their opinion on what way things should go. And just more as I get older, I look at what's going to happen when I have to get a job. Mm-hmm. Certain things that I think people should have, freedoms that we should have, directions that the country has taken to make us more powerful. I want a stronger United States. And like I said, I love this country. I want us to be a good nation. I want people to like to be here. I want people to be more aware of what has been given to them by living in this country. And there's been steps taken that degrade from that. We've been cutting money for education and research, which are like 2 of the 3 things that make this country exceptionally powerful. And people don't realize that's going to have a direct effect on our economy. People complain that the economy is getting bad. Well, your elected officials are taking money away from things that make us powerful. I mean, that's pretty much the only reason we are as powerful as we are, is because we have smarter people. There is more money for education. Research is one of the top things that makes us exceptionally powerful and wealthy. And if you cut that, you lose money. So, I mean, I've just noticed those things as I've been getting older, that certain things have to happen for the way I would like to see my country become better. And it's, one of those selfish things, I guess, but because it's only my opinion of what I think should be better, but it's just things that I've noticed that I think would make us better.
Did your experience in the Air Force help you at all in getting more active politically, or did it inspire you?
I guess I could be a politician now that I've been in the military. I'm not going to be, but it really did, because I think there's a lot of, you talk about it a lot, especially after September 11th, after we decided to go to war. It's what we talked about all the time. I mean, you talked about what you thought was right, what you think we should do, and you have, in the military, you have people from all over. I mean, you have every corner of the country. So you get different views from everywhere, and it's something that you talk about a lot, especially, obviously, after September 11th. That's what everyone talked about. But being in the military, if you're in Massachusetts, you talk to people from Massachusetts. I was talking to people from Texas, Georgia, Washington, California, Iowa, everywhere across the entire country, and you get to see. And it's important to how people develop is where they grow up. I mean, there's different political climates in different areas of the country, and that's going to, perpetuate their own beliefs. So you get to see a different aspect, and you get to experience a lot more of what people's opinions are, and it, may have you change what you think, because you see, well, I didn't see it from that side.
So, where you are now is somebody who's been in the service and you've left and you've gone to school. Would you recommend for students who are thinking about, what do I want to do? Do I want to go to college? What do I want to do with my life? Would you recommend the military as a positive educational experience?
I believe in 2 years mandatory military service after high school, so I think yes. I think doesn't have to be military. I think 2 years mandatory civil service to your country after you graduate high school, because too many people don't appreciate what they have here. And I think that's important to foster that. And I think a way to do that is, well, after you get to high school, you go 2 years, and it can be doing whatever, but as long as it's helping your country. I say military because the military does a lot to help the country, but other organizations obviously do it. 2 years, working with relief foundations and things like that. After Katrina hit, what if we had, thousands of kids right out of high school and they go down there and help rebuild? I think it happened a lot quicker. And I think that gives you a better outlook on your country and a more appreciation for what you have, and that there are still people in this country that don't have as much as you do. Especially, growing up here on the North Shore, we're pretty lucky. We're a pretty wealthy area of the country, and people don't get to see a lot of, the poverty and the bad areas of cities living if you just stay around here. And if you don't experience that, you think it doesn't exist. It's kind of one of those things you can push to the back of your head. And I think if people were mandated that they had to help their own country, I think they'd be a lot more appreciative of that. Well, that, and it could foster resentment because you had to go and do something. But I think it's important, and I do think people joining the military is important. I think it's a good, unbelievable opportunity. I don't think you can get it anywhere else. But there's also people that wouldn't fit well in the military. I mean, it's for some people. It's most certainly not for other people. It's it's one of those things. Your job in the military is to kill people and break their stuff. I mean, no matter what job you do, you can be a cook, you can hand out towels at the gym. You're still aiding in a war machine, and that's what the military is. And some people don't want to do that, and I don't think they should have to do that particularly, but I think they should have to do something for their country.
How do you feel about that? You're just saying, the major goal of the military basically is to break stuff or, eventually be involved in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that and being a part of that?
It's what it is. I mean, it is what it is. It's the military's job, like I said, is to kill people and break their stuff. And whether you are actively doing that or you are using the threat of that, which is a big goal of the U.S., is to pose a threat that if you want to harm the U.S., we have this gigantic war machine that effectively will stop most any country in the world. I have no problem being with that. I've come to the realization, that there are people and there are countries in this world that the only way to get through to them and to stop what they're doing is through violence. And it's sad. It'd be a great world if we didn't need guns and everyone could get along, but it's not going to happen if there's people that want to impose their will on your way of life. Sometimes violence must be used, and it stinks, but you have to. It's just one of those things you can't get around.
How do you think your experience in the Air Force and your education will shape your future?
Hopefully I'll make more money. If that's the right answer you're looking for. It already has shaped my future, in all honesty, because it's driving me to succeed more, and it's not just because of the military. You have to take it from the military. It's not going to just give it to you. You have to want to change your life in that direction, and you have to really think it's important to do what you want to do and what you want to succeed in. It just gives you the tools to do so, and you can take those tools and leave them on the ground, or you can pick them up and go and do something with your life. So it already has affected my life, and it already has shaped my future, because now I'm in school. I'll graduate in about a year in a field that's prospering right now. And I mean, obviously the goal of going to school is to make more money. I mean, unless you want to be a teacher, which then your goal is not to make more money, it's to educate other people. It's a tough life. I've seen too much of it.
So why did you agree to be interviewed today?
I thought it was a good project, in all honesty. I don't think that people in the military are shown, they're shown in a positive light all the time. You see it on the news and things like that, but it's not active in how they feel. And I was hoping that it would show that, while there is the military and you have that conglomerate of what they all believe and that, that generic, this is how the military feels, but you also have individuals, it's the big thing they push, teamwork, 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 but there's individuals in there, and they're all different. I can guarantee you my interview is going to be different from the guy that went before me, and the guy that went after me, his interview is going to be different too. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have different answers, because we'd all had come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and we took those and you know, the military changed it a little bit, but you know, you still have that, and it's a wider view than people realize. They're very narrowed in on the military, and it's actually very wide in that, you know, there's a lot of different people that come and go through the military. And I think it's important to realize that, because they get lumped into, you know, Uncle Sam's big green killing machine, and it's not the way it is. There's a lot of different people with a lot of different views.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for coming to this interview.
Not a problem.
It's been great. It's been great the second time around.
Yes, the second time was
Just as
better.
good as the first. I've enjoyed both. Thank you so much.